shortened season by everybody last year, but, we like his stuff and what he brings to the mix. He's got a little experience as well. So that's a great fit. And I have history with Keenan Middleton. I was with the Angels when we first drafted him. So knowing him a little bit and how he's wired, I think it's a really good opportunity for people to come in, join our bullpen, and take on significant roles if they throw the ball well.
Skip, how ready is Mitch Haniger to get going this spring after missing so much time the last 2 years?
He's about as excited as everybody. He's a lot going on in his life. If you haven't seen, they had a little baby here a few weeks ago. So that's all good. A little girl that he had over there. So his workouts have been going great. We saw a little video. Some of you may have seen it on Instagram here, and he's got all of his strength back. He's starting to pick up his baseball activity. Had some opportunity to spend some time with Tim Laker, talking to our hitting guys. They've been in constant communication with Mitch as well. So we're just trying to take it slow with him. Mitch, he wants to get after and get going, but he's in a really good spot physically and mentally. And like I said, the addition to his family, he's got a lot to be happy about.
Hey, Scott, if all goes well and Mitch is in right and Kyle's in center and Kelenic gets the call up, how's he going to feel about playing left, and who's gonna broach that subject with him?
Well, certainly, we've got a lot of talented young outfielders, and Kelenic being one of them. And certainly at some point, you're looking forward for him to make his debut. Most of the time when young players come to the big leagues, they're really happy about being in the big leagues. And as long as they're in the lineup, they don't get that concerned about where they're playing in the outfield. And, looking at, opportunities, where they may lie, where the playing time is going to come from. That's why we've spread guys around and made them play all three outfield positions throughout their minor league career and stuff. And, that won't be an issue, when his time is right, and we'll have to wait and see, when that's going to be. But, very talented player, and, excited for what he can bring to our future.
Scott, last year obviously was not a normal season or a normal year for anyone. And with all hopes being that this upcoming season is much closer to normal, what does that give you in terms of development with the time that you have, with the resources that you have, with the players that you are trying to continue their development at the big league level right now?
Yeah, it certainly gives him more opportunity. Last year, everybody was disappointed. We only got 60 games to play, but at the end of the day, you're thankful that we got anything at all in. And we found out a little bit about some of our young guys and which ones are ready to take a next step forward, which ones may need a little bit more developmental time. Hopefully we play a 162 game season. In doing that, we're going to find out exactly where we are with a lot of our guys. But where we sit today versus where we sat a year ago, I couldn't be any more excited, seeing that the steps that a lot of our players took, and not just Kyle Lewis. And we saw some things in what Evan can do and Dylan Moore, but what Chef did and a couple of our young pitchers, coming out of the bullpen. We've got a lot to look forward to. And that the core of the group is really starting to solidify. Now we still need more. We still need to add pieces, whether it's pitching and, really important. We have a strong veteran presence in what Siegs and hopefully getting Haniger back will help those young guys along as well. But, hopefully we get to play 162. We keep our fingers crossed that, things will be out there and can make that happen. But I'm fired up. I really am. And I hope we keep adding to that pitching. I know Jerry and the guys in the front office are working diligently to tighten that up for us.
Do you still seem, as we sit here today, as excited about a six-man rotation as you did at the end of the season? I know you saw some tangible and even some ancillary benefits from doing that. Where do you sort of sit with that today? And do you still feel like maybe there's room to add another starter this winter?
Well, I am a big fan of the six-man rotation. I thought it worked great last year. Keep in mind, we had an expanded roster last year. We were able to keep 28 players on the roster for the entire season. So if we go back to 26, now you're probably cutting out a couple arms out of the bullpen, which makes it a little bit more challenging with the six-man rotation. But, as we sit today, it's something that we're going to go forward with. I think it's a really a benefit for our younger pitchers. Having that extra day, it allows them to work on some things a little bit more aggressively between starts. I think it helps Yusei Kikuchi. I think it helps a lot of different guys because we're seeing better stuff when they go out there the sixth day. Also, it allows me to give them a little bit longer leash. let them try to work through some of the traffic and the situations that come up, say in the fifth or the sixth inning. It worked really well for us. Right now we're going into spring training and we'll start the season that way on a 6-man rotation and see where it takes us. But, having only 8 bullpen guys, you're going to have guys in that bullpen that can throw multiple innings, you know what I mean? And be very resilient and be able to bounce back. Otherwise you're going to have some nights where you're going to get cut short if you're starting pitching as a group stumbles, for a turn or a couple turns through. So again, I look at the positives and how it was able to help us last year. And I really think it'll be a big benefit going forward this year. Keep in mind, our guys only had about 10 or 11 starts last year with the shortened season. So we're going to have to watch the workload, as we go through this year.
Scott, you and Jerry have been very candid in the past about where you guys stand. A couple of years ago, we said, all right, pump the brakes on playoff hopes. We're not quite there yet. Last year, you kind of tempered expectations as well. I think a lot of people were looking at 2021. I'm not asking you to make a prediction or anything, but I'm just, where do you guys think you are? Is this year different in terms of, you maybe being able to contend for a spot?
It's different heading into spring training than we have been the last couple of years. Certainly, we made all the trades after the 18 season. Going into 19, we were in transition. Last year was all about giving young players opportunity. Like I said earlier, now I feel like we're starting to see a core come together. And anytime you get your core group of players, and especially exciting when they're homegrown players, and then they understand what we're about and what it means to be a Mariner, I do like our chances to be more competitive throughout the whole year, understanding that we still got a ways to go. We played very well, in my opinion, over the last 30, 35 games of the season, but it's 30, 35 games. In a 60-game season, that's a big chunk. In a 160-game season, it's such a small sample. So we need to be realistic on where we're at. But for me, and I said it last year, you will hear me say it a ton this year, it's about getting better. If our young players can continue to grow and get better, and we continue to add, okay? And sometimes you're going to add from the outside, whether it's bullpen, starting pitching, maybe a position player here or there. But the young players that are coming up through our system, if they continue to get better, I like our chances for being very competitive this upcoming season. I really do.
Scott, I know he's usually out in the middle of the woods at this time of the year and unreachable, but have you any status update on Tom Murphy? Will he be ready to go by spring training? And I didn't hear if Mitch will be ready to go by spring training.
Yeah, both those guys are progressing really well. Murph is full go. 100% weight bearing, doing his running, his full workouts. He feels great. We have been in constant contact with him. We've got weekly calls with our catchers and different things like that. We've been doing this off season. So he feels great. Very anxious. It's hard. It's hard for players to sit out a whole year. He and Mitch are going to be as excited as anybody to get to spring training and just be part of the group again. And injury free, go out there and get after it and get their bodies in shape, get ready to go and up to game speed. So right now we're in great shape with Murph, and we missed him. I'm looking forward to both those guys coming back and being regular contributors for us.
You got Terens at the end of last year and he played well for you. How do you kind of balance him with Tom?
Well, I think, just running a catcher out there for 120, 130 games, it really doesn't happen nowadays. It needs to be a tandem. Love our group. Those two guys, they add a lot offensively. Really like the way Terens swung the bat last year. And certainly we know Murph's got all kinds of power and what he did the year before. I think defensively, they're both very capable. They throw well. They're getting a good understanding of calling the game and working with our pitching staff and new, our younger pitching coaches. We spend a lot of time getting those guys up to speed. So I think we've got a great tandem back there, and that's what it takes. It's never just one guy carrying the load. It doesn't work over the course of a long season. So I love our catching. Where we're at right now, we have Cal Raleigh behind them, who's an interesting young prospect that, played really well in the taxi squad situation down in Tacoma. And then I actually saw him play for a few days down in Arizona this fall. He looks great. So we're in good shape as far as the catching goes.
Hey, Scott, I want to talk to you about strikeouts, JP and Evan specifically, in terms of you got an off-season program with them in terms of, concentrating and maybe shortening up with 2 strikes. I mean, there was a lot of strikeouts between those two guys last year.
Yeah, it's a good question, Dave. It's something, at the end of the year, you're looking back and see how did we do statistically in a number of different areas, pitching wise, offensively, defense, base running, all that stuff. There's room for growth. offensively, no question about it. And, when you look at, we talk all the time about dominating the zone, controlling the zone. What does that mean? How do we track it? It's more than just tracking the walks versus the strikeout. Okay, there's more that goes into it. But when you're looking at the hard numbers, the strikeouts are something that did get in the way. Strikeouts are up around the league, not just on our team. A lot of it's driven by the velocity of pitching throughout the league. And it's hard to hit. It really is. But, you look at these teams that get deep in the playoffs and win the World Series. It's teams that, don't strike out quite as much. They find a way to get the bat on the ball when the pitching is very elite. So I know Evan is living in Arizona. He has a place down there. He's spending regular time at both Evan and JP are both working out at our complex. And both JD and Lake have spent time with these guys this fall, trying to make a couple little mechanical adjustments. It's really hard to make mechanical adjustments in season. You have to do it in the off season. And both those guys are working on some things on a little bit different program right now. But the one thing we don't want to lose is their aggressiveness at the plate. And I think JP does a really good job with his swing decisions, as does Evan. Once in a while, that ball in the strike zone, they're swinging and missing that. That's what we got to tighten up, make sure they can get those balls in play. But I'm not worried about those two young guys. They're working their tail off. They are going to get better. There's no question about that.
Hey, Lake and Perry, will they be back with you on the field?
That's the plan right now. I had an opportunity to do a Zoom call with Perry just yesterday, and very challenging year for those guys being away from the team. And I give those guys a ton of credit by working as hard as they did to stay connected with their players. It's talking to them regularly, even though they're not there every day. And it's hard. It's a grind. It wears on you. But right now, the plan is that they'll be back on our staff on an everyday basis next year.
Hey, Scott. Nice to talk to you.
Hey, Larry.
How you doing? You mentioned Jared a few minutes ago. I think most people would think that him and Logan Gilbert are the kids closest to the major leagues. Did the stint on the taxi squad and having no minor league season, did that slow their progress to the majors, or do you still think they're on the same path, same timetable?
It certainly didn't help. They need the experience, and playing upper level minor league baseball it's really important. Oftentimes, if you're at the AA, but more importantly, even the AAA level, you're facing guys that have been in the big leagues. They're a little bit more polished, a little bit more experienced. And it's an important step to take in your development on the way to the big leagues. So, Logan's had a little bit more time in AA than Jared has, but we'll just have to wait and see what they look like when they come into spring training, see where they're at there. Again, really like the players, like how they're wired. I think they're going to be just a huge part of what we're doing here going forward. The timetable, I've often said it'll kind of be up to them. Where are they at? Where are we at as a club? The one thing I do know that they love being Mariners, and they love that we've been keeping them very involved in what we're doing going forward, whether it's the calls in the wintertime and keeping them up to speed, even though they haven't touched the big leagues yet. We all know they're going to be a big part of what we're doing here going forward.
Scott, I'm sure we'll ask you about this again leading up to spring training, whenever that may start. But is second base an open competition? I mean, I know Shed kind of had the job last year, struggled. Dylan came in. I know you talked about wanting to get Dylan more reps at second base. Is it open competition there? How are you going to view that?
There's always competition. You know what I mean? For playing time, I think we've got really good options. I think Shed at this time a year ago, we were committing to Shed and we're going to give him, every day at bats, which is what we did. He didn't make adjustments, really never got going offensively. To Shed's credit, I thought he made huge strides defensively. So I did a nice job there. As we look forward, Dylan Moore had an outstanding offensive season. He really did. And he plays all over the field. It's a great strength of his, and one that's nice to have as a manager where you can plug that guy in anywhere. And I don't want to take that away from Dylan. But we'll give both the guys reps in spring training. We'll see how it plays out. But Dylan had a really awesome offensive year. And, you look at our team, and we play really well when we score about 4 or 5 runs a game. We win a lot of games. So the offense is a big part of it. And Dylan has been more consistent, throughout the last season than Shed was. So they'll both get chances in spring training to play a bunch. But, we'll just have to wait and see how it plays out. But Dylan has earned the right to get more regular time at second base.
Is Skip?
A lot is made of veteran leadership, and you've got even a little bit less of it on the offensive side of the ball right now. Is that something that is necessary with this group? Are you missing something if you don't have that? Would you like to get a little bit more in there?
There's a lot of players out there, in the free agent market, and certainly you're touching base with a lot of different guys. And Jerry and Justin are on the phone all the time, talking with other teams and agents and whatnot. But I really like our team. I do. I thought Siegs did a great job last year, being kind of that leader, that guy in the corner that young players are comfortable going up and talking to. And oftentimes Kyle taking the initiative and going to talk to the young players. I think it's a key component of us moving forward and taking the next step. And as we grow, I'd like to see some of these young players take on a leadership role. I do think a lot of them have the capability of doing that. I got to create the platform for them to do that, but they're not afraid. They really aren't. I think we see more of that coming out of JP Crawford. I know Kyle and Evan have that in them. Hanny and Siegs have both shown leadership ability here in the past, and we'll put even more of that on their plate. So I'm not worried about that, Shannon, on the offensive part. I like our group a lot.
Hey, Skip, going back to second base, is Ty France serviceable at all over there? And where is Shed Long in his recovery?
Yeah, first on Shed. Shed's, he's doing really well. He had the surgery on the lower leg issue. He's up, he's running, he's going through all that stuff, just starting to get into baseball activity at this time, but he should be full go by the time we get to spring training. And you'll see Shed at second. We've played Shed in the outfield before. You could see him out in left field, just getting at bats and getting some time out there. As far as Ty France goes, this guy can really hit. I know that's the first thing we talk about with Ty. He will get some time at second base as well. He'll spell Siegs at third a little bit and give Kyle a DH day. So Ty France is going to be in our lineup almost every day at different spot. And Ty has played first base as well if Evan needs a day. So he brings a lot to the table. And if you hit, you play. And we need a little bit more offense and certainly consistent offense. And that's what Ty brings. So he'll get some time. He'll also get some time with Perry Hill, which he hasn't had much, FaceTime with Perry. And I think talking to Bone yesterday, he's anxious to work with Ty every day and see if he can get him a little bit more comfortable around the bag at second, along with, getting tightened up a little bit at third base as well. So Ty's going to be fine. He's going to hit a lot for us this next year, and we'll create plenty of opportunities for him.
Hey, Scott, thoughts on Rafael Montero? What do you got?
I'm pumped. I'm really excited. I think it's a great trade on our side, and we bring a guy in who's got really good stuff. This guy's got good pitches. All of the scouting reports, the pitch grades we have on him, well above average with 4 pitches. He's pitched at the end of games. He closed games out. I think he's a great addition to what we're doing, and he fits. He's got enough experience at the end of the game. We need a little help down there. I think the one other guy that we don't talk about much because you haven't seen him is one of the other players we got in the San Diego trade, Munoz, the short reliever that we got from the Padres. This guy is special. I had an opportunity. He's coming back from Tommy John. I had an opportunity to see him at the end of October when I was down in Arizona. He's already getting on the mound. I think he works into our mix probably, I don't know, when we get into June. But it's a really elite arm. So you keep stacking these guys up. And he's done it in the big leagues already, and he's 24 years old, 25 years old. So they all fit together age-wise, talent-wise. They're very hungry. But the addition of Montero is really exciting for me, trying to get a little bit more experience down there, a little bit more reliability at the end of the game.
If you had to finish a game today, would he get the close?
Yeah, probably would as we stand today. But, we sit here in the middle of December and we still got a few months to go in the off season.
Thanks.
Scott, sorry if you already answered. What's been your message to the guys about when spring is going to start, how they should be approaching their off-season training, and whether you guys are going to be reporting in February or if it's going to be later?
Yeah, we're going about this offseason as we would a normal offseason, as far as our pitchers getting on their throwing programs and trying, telling everybody that, plan on it being mid-February. I think we'll have a little clearer idea once we get past the first of the year. That'll be a decision from the commissioner's office along with the Players Association. At the end of the day, we have to do the right thing. And it's always been about the health and safety, well-being of players and fans and everybody included here as we deal with the issues surrounding the pandemic. So right now we're going, as scheduled with planning on playing a 162 game season, but you have to be adaptable. That's one thing I've learned about 2020, and we know it's going to play into 2021 a little bit as well.
Hi, Scott.
You talked about, hi, Hannah from Yahoo Sports. I don't know if I haven't been on your calls that much, but
Okay.
you bring up sort of the adaptability of 2020 and into 2021. One of the things that'll be sort of different, hopefully, next year is the vaccine is coming. And I am just curious if you've given any thought to sort of how you'll message that to your players, how you'll talk to the clubhouse, if there are dissenting views on vaccines, or sort of how you'll manage that.
First of all, I think it's phenomenal that we do have a vaccine. It was able to come together as quick as it has. So give a lot of credit to the people a lot smarter than me that figured out how to do all that as quick as they did. So there is a little light at the end of the tunnel. Now, how does that affect Major League Baseball? And, when the time is right and when it is available, to myself, our players, then discuss it. But like I have with a lot of issues like this, those are all individual choices, whether players want to take it or not. And you'll have to see how that plays out as we get closer to that. But when our time is right, certainly the healthcare workers around our country need to get it first. There's no question about that. Senior citizens, people that are very high risk, need to get it first. Major League Baseball is probably down the list a little bit. So we'll wait for our time, and hopefully sooner rather than later, it'll be available, but we just have to wait and see. Messaging it to players, like I said all along, it'll be individual choice. It's nothing that you.
Sorry, I cut you off. No, it's the lag a little bit. Will you be concerned at all if your guys don't want to get vaccinated? Will you get vaccinated? How do you sort of will you get vaccinated? Let's start there.
Again, looking at everything around it, I probably will when the time is right. I don't think it's right to jump the line. I don't think any of us should do that. There are other people that need it first based on the job that they do. So I'd be very respectful of that. But again, it's an individual decision. And I'm not going to look differently at anybody. I'm sure MLB will come up with a plan with the Players Association that works for everybody.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Scott,
Hey,
what do you
Scott,
hear about the Yusei so far this season?
Yes, Yusei is working his tail off like he always does in the offseason, trying to get better. I know he's bounced around a little bit. He's was here in Seattle. He's been in Japan. He's been in Arizona. So not worried about him getting his work in at all. I think looking at his season last year, there's a lot of positives that came out of Yusei's season, and it really starts with the quality of his stuff. We saw the velocity and the breaking ball get a lot better. Again, he's got things to work on, and a lot of it around Yusei strives around, dominating the strike zone, getting in the strike zone, getting in good counts. So looking forward for him to come in, have a big season for us this next year. And like I said earlier, the six-man rotation, I think, really helps Yusei. We saw really good stuff out of him last year, and I would expect to see it again this year, and hopefully a little bit more consistent performance for him now that he's got a couple years under his belt here in the States.
Hey, Scott, Mark Topkin down in Tampa Bay. Two quick things for you. One, the Rays signed Joe Odom. Looks like you had a little bit of a look at him last year. What can you say about him as a catcher and what he does well?
Joe is a fantastic game caller. He really understands game planning and making sure the pitcher is, using his pitches, correctly in the right counts, in the right spots in the strike zone, and really does an awesome job of following a game plan and getting the most out of pitching. There's a lot of value in that. There really is. Certainly, I thought he did a great job with our organization in helping some of our young pitchers along, and I'm glad to hear he's getting an opportunity in Tampa.
Well, and the other thing is there was so much talk after the World Series over Kevin Cash's decision to take out Blake Snell. Just philosophically, how do you weigh those type of things when you have, I assume, a ton of analytical data and you have your eyes and your brain and what you're seeing, and how do you weigh those things? Because it's certainly been a point of conversation.
Yeah, I do know that, Tampa does a great job with their process, and they certainly believe in it. They stick with it. And I think Kevin Cash does an awesome job of managing his stable of horses. I think he claimed they were down there. So he does. They're a very talented team, but they stick with their process, and that's what allowed them to get in that position. And I respect them for sticking with it. I'm sure he wishes it would have turned out a little bit better. But again, when you're in the heat of the moment, you've got to make quick decisions. Oftentimes you talk through those before the game and what's going to happen here or how do you react to that. But ultimately it's on the manager to make the call. And he made the call that he thought was right at the time. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out for him.
Hey, Scott, going back to the 6-man rotation one more time, do you feel like you have enough right now in the roster and the organization to go with 6-man, or do you think you guys need to even add some depth? It doesn't, maybe not even a minor league or maybe even a minor league sign or something, some experience, because it seems like Logan and some of the younger guys might not be all ready to go.
Yeah, I think we're going to continue to add depth throughout the off season. I think we're just scratching the surface, and I think the offseason has been a little slow to get going with free agent signings and even some of the minor league contracts and different things, or you're giving a guy opportunity that's maybe bouncing back from injury or a bad year. You haven't seen a lot of those signings happen yet, but I know clubs are, they're looking at all their options. I do know that we feel very strongly the key to this next season will be depth. You're going to have a lot of pitchers going through uncharted waters, and the fact that they did not pitch much bulk, the number of innings in 2020, and now you got to get through supposedly a full season in 2021. So it'll be really important that you've got guys to go to, because undoubtedly you're going to have injury or poor performance at some point, and you're going to have to make some moves. But we're not done. Like I said, we're December 15th. We've got a couple of months to go before we get to spring training, and I would expect that we'll continue to add to our pitching.
So you were surprised Jerry didn't make a trade on New Year or on night before Thanksgiving like every year?
Well, he only does that when he's really going to upset your plans, Ryan. And when he knows that you don't have much going, then he does not in a hurry to make a trade. So next time you have something going, you let us know and I'll pass it along to Jerry.
Scott, you mentioned the timing down in Arizona. Were there some guys who stuck out to you, kind of took a step forward in that developmental league despite not having the minor league season?
Yeah, I got an opportunity to see Taylor Trammell. I'd never really seen him before. Watch him for a week down there. I was impressed. His numbers weren't that great as far as just getting a lot of hits and stuff like that. But I was really impressed about his maturity, how he goes about his at-bats, what he looked like running around in the outfield. I definitely think there's a major league player there. When, I'm not sure, but there's a major league player in there. There's no question about that. Seeing the development of Noelvi Marte. Well, when I first saw him at summer camp was really my first look at it. And at times he was really overmatched, as he should have been. This is a guy that's coming out of the DSL, and now he's playing against major league players in a major league stadium. But to see his development and kind of how he's progressed along was very encouraging. I thought Cal Raleigh looked very good down there. I thought there was a couple of pitchers who stood out for me. But again, it's a very small sample size. You see a pitcher for an inning or two, or you see a couple games. But I was definitely glad I went down there. And probably the one that stood out more than anybody else was Julio. I thought Julio Rodriguez played fantastic down there, completely healthy. It actually trimmed down a little bit, was running better than I'd ever seen him run before. Obviously, he hits the ball very hard, and the personality, all the things you're looking for there. So a lot of bright signs. It was a great week to go down there and just watch those kids play and how they were going about it, because it was a grind. Certainly those kids that had been in, on the taxi squad and then going to Arizona, that's a long time to play. Just fortunately in Arizona, you were playing against other teams. You weren't just playing against your teammates. So, but it was a grind for those guys, and I'm glad they did it.
Going back to Julio, Scott, given his age, the injury last season, and just the upside that he has, what are some tangible and realistic goals for him as we go into the 2021 season? Because it just seems like just such an impressive total package.
It really is. I think the sky's the limit. The ceiling is very high for Julio, but he needs time. He missed basically a whole year of development. He is playing a little bit in the Winter League, which is good. He's playing against some older players there, so finding out a little some more about himself and his swing. So, where does he start next year? I'm not sure. I do know he'll be a part of our spring training group, get him more reps there, more experience at the higher levels. And I know he's going to be much more comfortable this year than he was last year in spring training 1.0, when at times he was a little overmatched, as he should have been. It's just a different level, playing as much more experienced players. So I'm excited. The one thing about Julio is he loves baseball. He loves coming to the park. He loves his teammates. He loves being a Mariner. And, as he continues to develop on the field, one thing about Julio, the personality doesn't change. He's pretty much the same every day. He just can't wait to get to the ballpark and, take that next step towards getting to the big leagues. And again, when does it happen? I'm not sure. He'll let us know. And when he's ready, there won't be anything stopping him.
Skip,
Everybody,
Kyle Lewis had a
thankful.
heck of a year. Kyle Lewis had a heck of a year last year. What does he have to do now to move forward and add on to what he accomplished last season, Skip?
I think it's funny to listen to these guys, as they go through the award season and they kind of reflect on the season they've had. And I thought it was really interesting listening to Kyle. Kyle's a very good self-evaluator. He doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low, but he kind of knows where he's at. And I think he was maybe a little disappointed. Maybe, it tailed off a little bit at the end of the season for him, and struggled a little bit and started to see how teams were maybe making adjustments towards him. So I know the thing with Kyle is he wants to be consistent. Every day, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get a good at bat. He's going to play great defense for you. He's going to be into the game, and he loves hitting with runners in scoring position. And when he's not coming through in those spots, it really bugs him. It really does. So, those are the things I think, just trying to be more consistent throughout the course of a year, and, knowing how he works and how he's driven. The awards and the accolades and everything he's got in this offseason is only going to push him harder. I would expect the next goal for Kyle is to end up on the All-Star team.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, that is all the time that we've got for Scott today. But Scott, thank you so much for your time, and we will see you hopefully after the new year.
Happy holidays, everybody. Great seeing y'all. Be safe.
Merry Christmas, Skip.
You too, Scott.
Happy holidays, everybody.